This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of October 2019, and I am DM.
I am Tom.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Standard,
Yes.
Uhuru's war with judges.
Yes.
In the Daily Nation,
Yes.
Slay Queen Corporal is NYS tender tycoon. And in the Star, BBI will create powerful PM.
Yes.
MPs to join cabinet.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yes.
Uhuru's at war with judges.
Yes, Uhuru is pointing his guns at judges.
Yes.
And rightfully so. Story goes that he has refused to gazette the names of 41 judges given to him by the JSC on the grounds that some of the names contained in that list are tainted with the integrity issues. And I say, why not? Let's do it. If you're going to fix this country in every corner, including Treasury, all manner of government levels, then let's also fix the judiciary.
And you know what? His legacy depends on a very fair judiciary.
Absolutely.
So they can't afford to pull a judiciary coup like they did a few years back.
Yes.
We need them to be...
Absolutely.
So the story on the Standard is actually suggesting that this is a revisitation that he had promised.
Definitely.
So that also suggests that the judiciary just expects him to sign gazettement notices without scrutinizing or offering any or weighing in on it.
Listen, kudos to him for doing due diligence. However, they're also complaining that Treasury has cut judiciary budget by a third.
Yes.
However, I suspect austerity measures are all around.
Absolutely.
So maybe it's not just them being targeted?
Yeah. I mean, also to your point, the president, they think the president is a conveyor belt. That he just rubber stamps everything that comes, you know? Yeah. I mean, I think it is time that they know who the boss really is.
But I think it's also the culture that's come around the presidency. Everything he does, someone finds some fault in it. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know?
Absolutely.
So, we have a three-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it groundbreaking or repetitive? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy?
I like this headline. It's short and sweet. Short enough to read it as you drive by the newspaper stand.
And decide to grab it.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in the Daily Nation, there's a slay queen. She is a corporal. And she has made some money.
And now she's a tycoon.
So it's a very heavy laden headline.
Also, my personal opinion is that slay queen is always a very lazy description of
it is. But let me give some context here. So basically, she is a corporal. Her name is Caroline Mango. Mango.
Maembe.
And her companies received about 87.7 million shillings from NYS tenders over a period of time. Now, she escaped the NYS dragnet that happened a couple of months ago. And now she is being revisited by KRA. So EACC wrote to KRA and said, could you scrutinize some of these companies? So the companies that are being investigated to have received the 87.7 million have shareholders that are her daughters. So there's a lot of her family members. And so now, this is where we have reached.
Why did they save her for last?
But I also think she probably did the tenders above board in that way. But then now it's only that maybe she didn't pay her taxes. So the charge here is tax evasion.
So she's a cop who used to show up to work with a Prado.
And so she also caught a lot of people's attention. I think caught a lot of people's attention.
With a lavish lifestyle.
I take issue with using slay queen for every time a woman does something.
So do I. Very lazy description.
I also feel like NYS needs a refresh button. It has had so much negative press. Maybe they just need to shut it down and start again.
And then restructure.
Start again. Anyway, can we toss for slay queen?
Very far.
In the Star, we have BBI.
So this story, it's not news. I think we have known for many months now what the BBI is going to propose.
Precisely.
But what the Star is telling us is that they indeed are proposing an expanded executive, a parliamentary system of government, where we'll have a ceremonial president who will be voted in by popular vote. And Prime Minister, 2 deputies. And then the MPs or the cabinet will be drawn from members of parliament. So we'll have a political cabinet once again.
So the cabinet secretaries will be picked
from
a group of elected officials.
Yes, absolutely. Like it was in Moi era, in the Moi era in the previous constitution. But then they're also telling us that they are placing a lot of emphasis on regional balance and representation. That if your community is not represented at the executive level, then the cabinet positions will also be selected with that in mind.
Absolutely.
Which is solving one parameter of what they had said BBI was to do. Ethnic tension, isn't it? For me, I also think this shift will mean that parties are now going to be extremely powerful.
Parties will be king.
So I just hope that now we
better get your KANU cards.
But what this will bring, and it will face some hurdles. If you don't bring this thing called proportional representation. Look, the Kikuyus, GEMA, and the lawyers and the Kalenjins will not accept a situation where their powers, their direct power as it lies right now, as your popular vote, you can vote directly for a president.
One man, one vote.
One man, one vote is not translated to parliament. Now, for example, Kiambu has about 12 constituencies. Now, that should actually be more. Should we take the threshold of the number of people in a constituency?
So you should have more seats.
You should have more seats in parliament.
It
should actually translate. This number should actually translate in parliament. Now, I'm not very sure this will be taken. But I think it is a great opportunity for this country to actually undertake, because we forever forget thing of ethnic tensions during election cycles. So proportional representation for you is important. Proportional representation is very important.
Interesting.
I would also like to know what other recommendations are there in the
BBI
in the BBI report, because we've focused so much on the structure of government.
Absolutely.
Yet there are so many other things that could be there. Maybe this is also a smokescreen
for other things. Are we being distracted from other things? Let's hope not.
Who knows? we will know when the president returns, because they're actually going to present it to the president and to Raila Odinga
once he returns.
Absolutely.
So between the two, what is our winning headline?
The Standard, hands down.
Okay, so then we have Kevin.
No, BBI.
Break the tie.
You know why?
Yes.
Well, for the first time, we will not have cabinet ministers who are like Shamba boys, because they will have some locus standi. At least when someone is going to give a report of progress at ministerial level and is going to parliament, he has some locus standi because he feels that there is a need for him to represent the progress of government to the people.
And to secure his political future. Well, you have made a very valiant effort there. I will give the Star as the winning headline. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a three-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
Yes.
So you want to start with Gado?
Gado has a fat cat, a drawing of a fat cat. And is also it's a puppeteer. There's a marionetting Uhuru Kenyatta there, and
who is in turn marionetting?
Who's in turn marionetting? Who is this? Macharia, CS Macharia. And then now listen carefully how things work, how this thing works, and on the board is SGR. Now, what Gado is trying to tell us here is Uhuru is beholden to a fat cat.
And Macharia is beholden
to Uhuru.
But Macharia being beholden to Uhuru is a fact of life. Ministers do not come into office with their ideology and their intentions. They work at the behest, at the instruction of the president.
That's what having a boss looks like.
Yes.
Gado drew some nonsense here. We'll just crush it.
There you have it. 2M being very decisive today.
Yes, and the caricature of President of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Ozone?
Yes, this is Ozone. And next to him is Xi Jinping, China's president, and the caption there, Putin paints a pretty picture of Africa. And the context of this is this, what Ozone is telling us is Africa is being partitioned by the East, and China and Russia are on top of it. I don't know why we as Africans, and allow me to say this, that every time there is a summit somewhere, we think our Africa is being divided. Right? That it's being partitioned. I don't think so.
Leftover trauma from the Berlin Conference.
I mean, people must have very
there's a shared feeling that, the global structure has to change.
Yes.
The way in which we feel like we're always being manipulated. I mean, we're right to be scared.
Yes.
We always feel like we're about to be divided and people are about to strip us off apart as Africa.
The only thing I would actually like about this Russia thing, I think it's best that African countries go and buy warplanes and jets from Russia, so that when you're going to ask the Americans to give us weapons, they say no, Congress has to approve. At least I think we need to ring fence our natural resources from the West, and the only way to do that is to buy arms.
Wow, okay.
I didn't see all that from the cartoon. Excellent.
So I'm very uninspired by it, but if you'd like it to be parked, parking bay it is.
Let's park, because I think we have another... Oh, where is it? We have another cartoon
Let me get it for you.
From Victor Ndula.
Yes.
What is Ndula telling us?
It's Putin.
Yeah.
And Putin is hugging himself.
Yeah.
And he is connected to a socket.
Yes.
And the socket says Russia and Africa Summit.
Yeah.
But the one that has been unplugged is of the Soviet Union.
Yes.
And then Putin is there saying, I love Africa too. And I think here they're alluding to the fact that, Africa was the theater of war for the Cold War, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where the West was trying to come in, but also the KGB and those guys were trying to influence us in many ways, right?
Yes.
Why the plug?
The Iron Curtain. It's the power. Where power is coming from. Now, what is the caption?
It says Russia-Africa Summit.
Russia-Africa Summit.
I don't know. It took too long to understand for me on my part.
It's a very slow cartoon day.
Yes,
I think.
Very, very slow.
Yeah.
So which one do you go with?
I go with none.
So do I. I
go with too pessimistic.
Moving on.
I agree.
Let us move on. So no winning cartoon today.
Absolutely.
But what is our final thought?
And now our final thought, inspired by a book entitled Mossad, the Intelligence Service, right, and the Great Operations of Israel's Secret Service, by two people. One, Michael Bar Zohar, and Nissim Michal. They sound very Jewish.
They happen to be. They happen to be, and I think I'll just remind our audience at this point that we have a partnership with Rafu Books.
Yes.
You can find them on rafubooks.com.
Yes.
And you can order books from them from the convenience of your house or your office, and have same-day delivery if you're in Nairobi, or next-day delivery if you're outside of Nairobi, and they're also everywhere in East Africa.
Absolutely.
That is true.
Absolutely.
So that's rafubooks.com.
Yeah.
So Mossad, the Great Operations of Israel's Secret Service, by Michael Bar Zohar, who is an Israeli historian, novelist, and politician, and he was a member of the Knesset, the parliament, between 1980 and 1990. I think he's 80 years old now.
Yes.
And Nissim Michal, who is a leading TV personality in Israel, and he's also a PhD in political science.
Nice.
Very solid authors.
Absolutely.
And the book describes the inner workings of one of the most feared secret service agencies in the world, the Mossad, the Israeli Intelligence Service. So this book focuses on the operational details and personalities behind the famed Mossad record of assassinations, kidnapping, all those espionage intrigues. So in the introduction, the authors say that they wrote the book to bring to light the greatest missions and the most courageous heroes of the Mossad, but they also don't shy away from talking about the failures in other operations that once tarnished the agency.
Absolutely.
So the book maps a range of operations covering 6 decades. In fact, the authors cover 21 famous cases, ranging from the kidnapping of the Holocaust organizer Adolf Eichmann. We've talked about him before in the book, in the Helen Arendt book, Banality of Evil. And the undercover work of the master spy Eli Cohen. Among many others.
That's my favorite.
So I personally am in awe and admiration of the Mossad after reading this book. Their operations are done with such clarity, but they're also very, very strategic. They can do one operation in a span of
many years,
20, 30 years. I think one of the most famous long operations was Operation Wrath of God. I think that is what it was called.
Is it after Munich?
Yes, after the Munich massacre, where 11 Olympians from the Israeli team were killed. And the Mossad went after every single suspect and killed them for over a period of 20 years. So I liked chapter 9 of this book, and it's about, it's called Our Man in Damascus.
Yes.
The story is perhaps about one of the greatest spies that Israel has ever had, Eli Cohen. Israel sent Cohen to Syria in the 1960s as an undercover agent.
Yes.
So now in the early 1960s, Syria was a sworn enemy. Or Syria and Israel were sworn enemies.
Absolutely.
Because of two things. Israel had suffered many defeats in the Golan Heights and because of surprise attacks from Syria. And secondly, Syria, in conjunction with other Arab states, had planned to carry out a grand engineering project to divert the waters of the River Jordan, which eventually was going to deny Israel
they're going to thirst
of water.
Of water.
So Cohen was sent to Israel to secretly extract and send information back to Syria, back to Israel to inform their military strategy, and he was very, very successful. Not only did he infiltrate the enemy territory, which was very hostile at that point, he also managed to make such many contacts that he rose through the ranks of the Syrian government. In fact, by the time he was captured and tortured and hanged, because this is how the story goes, he had been offered to be the Deputy Minister of Defense in the country. So the information that he transmitted to Israel transmitted exactly where their bunkers were, exactly what the military strategy was. And even after his death, Israel used this information, for instance, in the 1967 Six-Day War, to effectively neutralize Syria.
And capture the Golan Heights. I mean, it's great. Did you see the part where how he was captured?
Yes.
Where he was transmitting. This guy always kept a program. Every 9 p.m., every
8 a.m. in the morning and 9 p.m. in the evening, he was transmitting. By the way, for viewers, you can see this story in great detail on Netflix on a limited series called The Spy.
So there's a man called, in this book, Ashraf Marwan. Ashraf Marwan was the son-in-law of Gamal Abdel Nasser, and he married a lady called Mona, who was the third daughter of Abdel Nasser. Now, this guy was treated very badly by Abdel Nasser, and after some time he had an affair in London with a lady called Suad, who was the wife of the Sheikh of Kuwait. Now, the guy was called back, this Ashraf, he was called back to Egypt, and he was told, now sit here, you're going to work for me. Now, because he was studying in London, he had to go back and give his thesis. Now, when he was giving his thesis, he's like, I have shivered this man called Abdel Nasser. Now, I am actually going to go and make a call to Mossad. So he gets into those red telephone booths in London and makes a call directly to Mossad. Now, first Mossad guy doesn't get it, second Mossad guy doesn't get it. After some weeks, they say, wow, we know that name. That name is very familiar. And say, how can the son-in-law of Gamal Abdel Nasser want to come in and
to contact us?
Anyway, long story short, they make contact and they cut a deal. This guy asks for every single piece of intelligence that he gives. He wants $100,000. Now, he's put on retainer. Shortly after, unfortunately, Gamal Abdel Nasser dies, and Anwar Sadat becomes president. When Sadat becomes president, he appoints this guy as Presidential Secretary for Communication and Special Advisor as well. Now, this means that he has leeway in every single cabinet meeting to go for cabinet meetings, take minutes, and
get information.
And get so much crazy information, especially military information. Now, what he was doing is once he gets the minutes and the reports, he goes and gives them to the Israeli intelligence service Mossad. Now, he used to give information that sometimes would not take place, right? And he says, oh, Egypt is mobilizing, and when Israel goes to counter-check, they're actually not mobilizing.
So he was misleading them?
Not really. Sometimes the intelligence in Egypt was also very well neat, and they didn't want to take some actions. They wanted to do to make it seem that they're going to make some actions, and yet they're not. But what they actually were intending to do is something called the 1973 Yom Kippur War, right? And Yom Kippur means Passover. Now, this guy called Ashraf went and gave the exact information of Egypt's mobilization of its forces around the border between Israel and Egypt. Now, for some reason, the Israeli chief of defense forces did not actually believe that this information was correct.
Because he thought there is no way they could attack during a holiday.
During a Passover. Now, it just so happened that just 10 hours before the war is when the Israelis noticed some movement across the border. And that is when, and by the time they actually realized it, Egypt had actually mobilized and they attacked Israel when they least believed it.
Oh, fantastic.
That war itself cost someone's their job.
So, and there's many rumors that Ashraf was a double agent. And to this day, nobody really has
nobody knows. In fact, nobody knows who killed him, if it was the Egyptians or the Mossad.
Exactly. So what happened in June 2007, the guy was found dead right outside his apartment. And it was suspected he had been thrown there. Now, the Israelis said it is the Egyptians that threw him there. The Egyptians say it is Israel. I mean, vice versa. You get it.
And some even say that he jumped. He wasn't pushed.
Yes, but he was taken out.
Yes. So this book is really full of so many intrigues. I'll be very short, seeing as Ashraf has taken up some of our time. But basically, the Israelis had this noble cause. They wanted to return all Jews to the motherland, to the promised land. And there were a little group known of Ethiopian Jews who lived in the mountains of Ethiopia. But at that time, Mengistu would not let Ethiopian Jews just leave. Basically, they were locked from migrating back to Israel. And Mossad devised a perfect plan using a diving sea resort. So that was their cover. So these agents went to Sudan, the neighboring country, and decided that, and worked with another Ethiopian Jew to smuggle Ethiopians from the mountains into Sudan. Their cover is the Red Sea Diving Resort. There's actually a film on Netflix that sort of outlines all this. And basically, they would dive during the day and look like tourists during the day, and then at night they would rescue these refugees from the camps and smuggle them to the Red Sea coast, and the Israeli Navy would then take them into Israel. Over time, over about 7,800 Ethiopian Jews were returned to Israel. And so many had died. About 4,000 people died doing this journey, moving from Ethiopia to Sudan, even through the water. It was really hectic times. But it was very noble of the Mossad, firstly. And I would encourage people to look up that book. It was very good.
In fact, reading this book reminded me of the categories GK that you gave us of spies. And it looks like a lot of Israeli spies fall into for country and for honor. And perhaps that actually explains why the Mossad is very successful and effective, because nobody, maybe except Ashraf, did it for money. And he was a millionaire. Doesn't even make sense.
Do you know by the time they were done, he had been paid $3 million by the Israelis.
So, and during these operations that we had with the repatriations back to Israel, there was a small Nairobi connection. So towards the end of Sudan's dictator falling, and towards the end of the operation, the Mossad agents had to escape. So they were helped by a CIA agent who hid them in crates, and they were flown to Nairobi. And then from Nairobi, the rest is history. So on a day where we had a winning headline from the Star and no winning cartoon, I want to leave you with this. Mossad and Israel has shown us that to protect civilians, the state needs sometimes to do things that are contrary to democratic behavior. It is true that limits can be blurred, which is why you must be sure that your people are of the best quality, because the dirtiest actions should be carried out by the most honest of men. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on TV. We are on GoTV, Pang Free to Air, and Star Times. Have a good evening.